Hello, welcome back to our podcast on all things video games. We have some sad news for you. This will be the last episode for the season. With that news, why don't we take a look back on some of the episodes we have done before? It all started with Counter-Strike, the game that started the competitive FPS shooter, the gold standard for what FPS shooters should be. Then we went to Quake, the oldest game out of all the games this season. This started the genre of FPS in general. It walked so other games could fly. After that, it was on to Team Fortress 2, a timeless classic that will never quite be dead. Valorant was a game that needed to come out for Counter-Strike's future. Without it, the devs of Counter-Strike would not have any competition to constantly update and improve their game. PUBG, on the other hand, was the game for the Battle Royale genre. It popularized an entire genre. After PUBG, Fortnite took over. It took all the good parts of PUBG and added the never-before-seen mechanics known as building. Then silently, in the background, Respawn Entertainment released Apex Legends. It gave Battle Royale players a new game to have fun with, all while being fully released and not in beta. Back then, Overwatch was on top of the world. It was known for its esports, but now it's gone, along with its old system. And finally, Rainbow Six Siege, the game with unique dynamic destruction that added a whole new dimension for players to use. Enough of the recap. Let's get into the finale for Season 1 on Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, a game that has been evolving continuously to the harsh jungle of the FPS genre. This is a game of our childhood, but unlike other games of this age, it lives and breathes to be able to tell the legacies of its past. Call of Duty is a game that crosses sub-genres inside of FPS, whether it's a thrilling campaign or a competitive multiplayer, an intense battle of zombies or a sweaty game battle royale. COD has it all. It has successfully collected all the Infinity Stones and has become the ultimate FPS game. This is the story of Call of Duty, the finals of FPS.
The Call of Duty franchise is the fourth largest video game franchise, and has a rich history that started with Activision's release of the first installment, titled Call of Duty, developed by Infinity Ward in 2003. The game was set during World War II, and focused on immersive storytelling and intense gameplay. The game received positive reviews from critics and won multiple Game of the Year awards in 2003. An extension pack for the game, Call of Duty United Offensive, was released in 2004. It introduced multiplayer into Call of Duty franchise, with various multiplayer modes and features. Since then, the multiplayer component has become a hallmark of the Call of Duty series. Many of the features you would see in newer Call of Duty games carry over, like jump shotting and drop shotting. But there are also many features that were lost. In the original COD, players could change stances almost instantly, leading to many players proning mid-jump, making it very hard to track. And players had the ability to lean from left to right, a feature that was used once or twice in the later games, but ultimately discarded due to the fast-paced nature of COD. The Call of Duty franchise took a revolutionary turn in 2007, with the release of Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare. The game shifted from historical settings to a contemporary, high-tech battlefield. It became the best-selling game in 2007, winning numerous Game of the Year titles, and it's widely considered one of the best video games of all time. This title was given to it not just because of the rose-tinted nostalgia glasses gamers had when revisiting COD 4, but also because of its perfect timing in the industry. With games heavily focusing on the extremes of war, with Halo and its futuristic setting, and any generic World War II game. But COD 4 gave something players had never before seen. This combined with a solid core gameplay and fun elements like kill streaks and perks, which were a relatively new concept. Now, if there's a thing about Call of Duty that we have to talk about, it is the movement. In the early days of the Call of Duty franchise, the game emphasized on grounded, realistic movement, with an emphasis on realistic historical warfare. However, as the series evolved into the contemporary, futuristic setting, there was also a shift in movement mechanics. Modern warfare marked the beginning of a new era, introducing faster-paced gameplay and dynamic movement. Sprinting, sliding, and limited parkour elements emerged, offering enhanced mobility and challenging players to adapt a more fluid and dynamic battlefield. As Call of Duty continued to advance, the franchise embraced a futuristic vision that further revolutionized movement. Mobility features such as exoskeletons, which allows players to perform boost jumps, dashes, and etc., became key elements in shaping the player experience. Titles such as Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare even incorporated wall running and zero-gravity environments, further challenging players with a dynamic experience. However, the franchise returned to a more grounded approach in the later releases, finding a balance between traditional and modern movement systems. Many of the COD veterans and pros wanted to be able to outplay opponents with more than just 2 buttons. They wanted something that kept the game realistic but added a much needed skill ceiling for players to reach. That feature was called Tactical Sprint. It allowed players to activate a short burst of speed that was faster than a normal sprint, but was usable for only a few seconds, followed by a cooldown. This combined with a newfound technique called slide canceling, where players slides on the ground but cancel it before the end of the animation to keep as much speed while having the ability to turn around and shoot their weapon at the drop of a hat. These new movement techniques gave a base movement increase to casual players by giving them a faster mode of travel, and meta-changing abilities for the players willing to practice slide canceling. The evolution of movement in Call of Duty reflects the series' commitment to innovation and adaptation to changing player preferences. Enough about movement in Call of Duty. Now, let's talk about something that has been there since the start. Campaigns.
Let's begin with the classics, the World War II campaigns that set the stage for the franchise's success. In titles like Call of Duty 2 and Call of Duty World War II, players weren't just thrust into historical settings. They were a part of defining moments in warfare. The meticulous attention to detail, from the realistic weapon handling to the hauntingly accurate landscapes, made these campaigns an immersive journey into the annals of history. Normandy, Bastogne, and Stalingrad weren't mere backdrops. They were characters in a story that unfolded with each step taken on the battlefield. Fast forward to the modern era, where the Modern Warfare series emerged as a narrative powerhouse. Characters like Captain Price and Soap became more than avatars. They became allies in a morally complex world. The campaigns were not just about winning battles, but navigating the treacherous landscapes of modern warfare, where the line between friend and foe blurred. The hyper-realistic visuals combined with the non-storytelling transformed each mission into a cinematic experience, leaving players emotionally invested in the face of their virtual comrades. More recently, Call of Duty ventured into uncharted territory with titles like Infinite Warfare, Advanced Warfare, and Black Ops 3, a title not connected to the original Black Ops series. Here, the battlegrounds expanded beyond Earth, introducing high-tech gadgets, futuristic weaponry, and interstellar warfare. These campaigns weren't just about adapting to new settings. They were a test for the players. challenging them to master advanced movement and innovative tactics in the pursuit of victory. While each Call of Duty campaigns bring its unique flavor, they share a common thread, an unwavering commitment to delivering intense cinematic experiences, from heart-stopping set pieces to emotionally charged character arcs. The campaigns have evolved, ensuring that players aren't just observers, but active participants in the unfolding drama.
Call of Duty Zombies was a game mode that was never supposed to happen. It was a passion project led by a small team of developers working in their already limited free time. The first Zombies game mode was released in Call of Duty World at War, 5 years after the original game was made. The first map, Nocturne Toten, was by today's standards very basic. It didn't even have Zombies' most well-received mechanic, perks. It had the bare minimum of guns you can buy off the wall and the mystery box, a magic box that you could spend 950 points to get a random weapon that ranged from your starting pistol to a ray gun, an explosive sci-fi pistol called a wonder weapon. All of this was done out of passion for an idea that people had already seen before. The executives behind World at War wanted the multiplayer and campaign to be what enticed people to buy their game. So they had the Zombies game mode locked behind finishing the entire campaign first. This only heightened the popularity of Zombies by almost giving it as a reward for completing the campaign. After the major success of Nocturne Toten, the team released many more maps, each innovating from the last, adding perks that gave you enhanced abilities like longer sprint time and upgraded health, and the Pack-a-Punch machine, which required specific objectives to be done around the map to be unlocked for all players to be able to upgrade their weapons to kill zombies even more effectively. After the life cycle of World at War was over and the studio behind World at War could make another game, Treyarch released Black Ops 1, and it came with 2 new maps, Kino der Toten and 5. Kino was much easier, sticking to the original idea of the later maps in World at War, but 5 added many new features and had the map design be a lot harder to navigate while being chased by zombies. Because of the somewhat annoying features that 5 had, a mini-boss that would steal your perks and a teleporter that would put you in a random spot, Kino was the much more favored map. After a few months, Treyarch's team added 4 new maps throughout the lifespan of the game, with Moon being the last one. Moon was a very special map because it was the first map to have an interesting and worthwhile Easter egg. An Easter egg is a secret hidden feature or quest. It usually involves a series of secret tasks or puzzles that players can complete to unlock a special story or unique item in the game. These are not needed for the main gameplay, but add extra fun and challenges for the players who discover them. Moon had you do many steps for the spectacular ending that sent out rockets from the moon base, destroying the Earth and cracking its crust. The next series was Black Ops 2, which released what many people call the worst map, Transit. The whole idea of Transit was for it to be as large as possible with as many features crammed in, but the whole execution made it very, very annoying to play with. The main gimmick was for players to be given a small little area to explore that were all connected with a bus route that took 7 real-world minutes to make a round trip and walk it. You also could not go to a new area by yourself because there was a thick fog preventing the player from moving out of the singular area. The only way to get around was a bus that could not be summoned and had a predetermined time when to leave each area. If you spent too long in one area, the bus would leave and you would have to wait 7 whole minutes for it to come back. This combined with a very tedious process to get the Pack-a-Punch, an underwhelming Easter egg, made the Zombies community very angry with the developers. After 3 new maps that range from mediocre to okay, the original developers released their last map, Origins, which was without a doubt the best Zombies map in Black Ops 2. Origins was the only map at the time to have the map's wonder weapon be connected to the Easter egg. There were 4 staffs, all with different abilities that you needed to upgrade to beat the whole game. This simple idea had you go do many puzzles, building and upgrading the staffs for hours to give players one of the coolest Easter eggs in the game. After Black Ops 2 ended, Treyarch went to Black Ops 3, where they switched teams to the original Zombies makers. Their first map, Shadows of Evil, was released to a mixed reception. Some newer players hated the map for its confusing and long-winded steps just for the pack-a-punch, not even the full Easter egg, while more experienced veterans of Zombies loved the map for its challenge. The story of Black Ops Zombies was also unfolding, with all the new maps coming out, leading up to a big ending on the last map, Revelation. Black Ops 3 Zombies, in many people's opinions, was the golden age of zombies. It had everything right, nothing too far from the original concept, but still new enough to be interesting. Black Ops 4, on the other hand, was the beginning of a very steady decline of zombies. The release of the game was riddled with bugs and inconsistent frame rates that sometimes led to crashes. The core gameplay had also been heavily changed to have players choose which perks they start off with and abilities that were given to them to make early rounds way too easy. Black Ops 4 was also the game that ended the Aether storyline that was started in Black Ops 3. Then, in Call of Duty Cold War, we are introduced to the new timeline that happened because of the Aether storyline. All the games after Black Ops 3 changed so much of the original gameplay of zombies that it lost all meaning. Call of Duty Vanguard was a continuation of Cold War that was the same thing again, just worse. This formula was becoming dull to many players and devs were not innovating enough. Now we are in Modern Warfare 3's spin on the formula, where they made the map hundreds of times bigger and with less focus on the round-to-round base system every other game had, to more exploring and completing objectives. And there we have it, the entirety of the Zombies game mode, the early startup to the golden age, all the way to the fall and complete perversion of the original idea. Now onto the newest game mode in the franchise, Warzone. From starting off strong in the pandemic, reaching 20 million players, to making 2 sequels for a game that didn't need one. Let's dive right in.
Now, we would like to highlight a unique game in the Call of Duty franchise. And it is a game that many of you have probably heard of, Call of Duty Warzone. Call of Duty Warzone is a free-to-play battle royale game published by Activision. It was announced on March 9, 2020, and released on the following day on March 10. Format where you jump out of the plane and loot up, but adds its own twist to formula. Players looting weapons also gain money, which they can buy ammo boxes, kill streaks, like a UAV, and the most important thing, a loadout drop. A loadout drop gives the players a chance to spawn in weapons and perks they chose before starting the game. Many players say loadouts are the reason why Warzone will never beat games like Fortnite and Apex Legends, because the game is automatically giving players who grind it in the multiplayer mode to have their maxed level weapon with the best known attachments an upper hand against people who couldn't even buy the multiplayer. And that's a very reasonable complaint. Activision is doing this because they want money. The best way they thought of doing that was giving players who bought the newest multiplayer an advantage against the free-to-play players. Another key feature in the game is the gulag. Once you fully die in the game, you get one more chance at staying in the game by 1v1ing somebody else in a close quarters map with a random assortment of weapons and utility. If you beat the other player, you are brought back with that loadout, and if you don't, then it's game over. Now, 2020 was an eventful year, known for Among Us, the coffin dance meme. Now, 2020 was an eventful year, known for Among Us, the coffin dance meme, the resurgence of Rick rolling, for God's sake, man.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And that's the wrong script. I mean, Memes in 2020 are too good for me to not talk about. The resurgence of Rick rolling, for God's sake, man. 2020 is probably best known for being the year where the entire world shut down due to COVID. And the launch of Warzone actually coincided with the first wave of lockdowns in the US and many other countries, forcing many players to stay home. Combine that with the fact that Call of Duty is a well-known franchise, and that Warzone was the franchise's first free-to-play game, Warzone saw huge success in a short period of time. On March 11, Activision announced that Warzone has been downloaded by 6 million people in the first 24 hours of the release. 2 days later, on March 13th, the official Call of Duty Twitter account announced that Warzone had crossed 15 million players earlier in the day. There was also a wave of content creators joining the game. Videos explaining tips and tricks, class setups, and etc. were everywhere on social media.
Let's go, boys! What? Are you in? I'm warmed up! I'm warmed up!
In today's video, we're going to be talking about the MP5, and more specifically, my MP5.
It truly felt like everyone was playing Warzone in 2020, and it was nominated for the Best Multiplayer Game at the Game Awards 2020. However, the success of Warzone did not last long. As time passed by, the game encountered issues that gradually eroded its reputation. One of the biggest issues in Warzone is an issue that exists in many other FPS games as well, as we've discussed in the past episodes, and it is cheating. Despite efforts from developers to implement anti-cheat measures, these issues persist, severely damaging player experience. Another issue with Warzone was its struggle to maintain a consistent, balanced meta. Issues with weapon and gameplay balance, combined with delayed responses to community feedback, resulted in player dissatisfaction and a gradual decrease in trust in the game's development. Lastly, there is a problem with Warzone that is relatively hard to fix, and that is the experience of casual players, which is the majority of the player base. Due to the nature of Warzone and Battle Royale games in general, players who cannot dedicate hours of their day to playing the game are constantly getting dominated by hardcore players. And players often say that every game they get killed by other players that are way above their skill levels, and it makes for an unenjoyable experience overall. A sequel, Warzone 2.0, was released in November 2022, and it was popular in a short period of time, but once again, fell off after the hype is gone. Many of the problems fixed by the original developers of Warzone, Raven Software, were brought back by the new developers of Warzone 2.0, Infinity Ward. And many of the quality of life changes given to the players had been removed without any good reason. Warzone 2.0 was advertised as a revamped version of Warzone, but it was a completely changed game that removed key features like the loadout system, and randomly made the Gulag in a 2v2 format when there was no need to get rid of the 1v1 system. Players were disappointed that the Warzone they loved was replaced with a game that was nothing like the original. They didn't even have a combat record in the release of the game. The combat record shows your stats from all your games, like your total wins of game and your kill to death ratio. After the release of Modern Warfare 2 2022, the original developers of Warzone, Raven Software, were given back control of the updates Warzone received. Raven Software brought back most of what they did in Warzone 1 and removed many unnecessary things that players hated. They got rid of the backpack system, upgraded play carriers, and reverted to change on the Gulag back to Warzone 1.
As we conclude this deep dive into the rich history of Call of Duty, we've traveled through iconic titles, witnessed the evolution of gameplay, and explored milestones that have shaped this gaming phenomenon. From the gritty challenges of World War II to the futuristic landscapes of advanced warfare, each installment has left an unforgettable mark. As we conclude a story through Call of Duty, we also conclude the first chapter of our story. We went through the start of competitive shooters to the start of battle royales and finished by going back to one of the oldest games that inspired many in the world of video games. Thanks for your support to Ready Player Rewind. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Spotify and YouTube, plus share with your friends and family. Catch us in our next chapter as we go through the history of story-based game. From the sour and bitter history-based storylines to the sweet and spicy otome games. Join us as we look through different angles of the vast world of story-based games. Until next time, gamers, we hope you will continue to support us in our next chapter and beyond.